Okay, so this is the algebra packet. This will be for the second week or days 6 through 10. Just like with the first week, I'm going to do it all 5 days in one video because I'm not going to take time to do every single problem because I know that you can do this. This whole week, which is this week, is all linear. So this is all 8th grade content. This is stuff that you should have pretty much mastered as a 7th grader in advanced or accelerated math. So again, I'm going to go pretty quick and just do maybe an example from each section. Okay, so we need to graph these lines from a table. So it's just plotting points and drawing a line through those points. They give us graph paper on the next page. I would actually recommend just using one graph and then graphing the 6 lines on the same graph. You could split it up into like 6 separate graphs and do like number 1, number 2, number 3. You could do that. That's fine if you've already done it. No big deal. Or you could just make one big graph and put all the lines on the same graph and then just label the lines. So if you have your graph set up, X and Y, then you were to, here, I'll just do an example. Let's do number 1. So -1, comma 2, -1, -1. Let me draw these lines a bit better. There. Okay, so -1, comma 2 is there. And 0, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, as you're plotting these points, if you start to see one that is not following in a linear pattern, then double check to make sure you did it right. 1, comma 8, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our pattern is up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. That should be the next point at 2, comma 11. Yep. Okay, so there's one. And then drawing your line, remember you need to go through all the points, both directions, so it's a little bit more difficult with this, and then just label this as number 1. So that's your line for table number 1. And then just do that on all the same graph and then just label them all 1 through 6, and that's perfect. Okay. The next part is graphing from equations. So it gives you examples and all of that here. But remember, we want the equation to be in this form, mx plus b. So we need to convert it if it's not, and then we can graph it. So let's take a look at number 4. So here we have x and y on the same side, but we don't want that. So let's rearrange this. And it's the same rules as solving equations. So I'm going to add 6x to both sides. That's going to give me 3y equals, I'm going to put the x term first. Okay, and then divide both sides, which is the same thing as dividing each term by 3, because we want y equals, not 3y equals. So y equals 6 over 3, that's 2. Actually, I'm going to leave it as 2 over 1, x, plus 4. Okay, and so graphing this, we graph our y-intercept first, which is 4. So put a point on the y-axis at 4. And then our slope is 2 over 1. So rise over run. So up 2 over 1. And it'd be nice if, if we can get 3 points. We are out of graph. So let's use the same pattern and go backwards. So 1 and 2, 1, 2. So just think of it, it's still the same slope. And the slope is always going from left to right. So it's our pattern is up 2 over 1. So like, let's choose a point that we just made. So we're going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So it's the same. So we haven't changed anything by going backwards, right? Because lines go in both directions. Okay, so there's that. Number 2, you're going to have to rearrange the same way that I did number 4. And then the other ones are already in the correct form. Okay, extra practice, same kind of thing. These all look pretty straightforward. Again, you might have to go backwards to get enough points so that you can draw your line. Let's see, number 3, that looks a little bit different. So there is no x, there's no x term. So the number in front of x, remember, is our slope. If our slope is not there, it means it's 0, which means it's a horizontal line. And we do have a y-intercept, and that is -5. So our line is a horizontal line that crosses at -5. So that's it. Okay. All right, moving on. These are actually something that I wanted to do towards the end of the year, and they're really cool. So this one is, there's one of those shapes already given to you. So this is it's like a balance. So you can see that this horizontal bar is level, meaning whatever's on the left has to be balanced with what's ever on the right. Oops. And if we think about this, so we have 2 and we have 2. And then the total is 24. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, but just think about, if we have 2 things that are balanced, or in other words, we could say that they're equal, and they give us 24, okay? So what does that mean about each side? All right, so that's it. That's all I'm going to give you. From that, you can definitely figure out the value for the rest of those shapes. Okay, back to linear functions, and this time we're writing equations from the graph, so it's kind of just going backwards from how we graphed from an equation. Okay, so let's look at one of these. There's a couple of special cases. Number 8, number 5, we should be able to do. That's like the one I just graphed for you, so I'm not going to do that. But I will do number 8 as well as, let's say, number 2. Okay, so again, we want our lines to be in this form, slope-intercept form. So we need these 2 numbers. We need the y-intercept and we need the slope. So the y-intercept for this one is here, so I'm going to figure out what number that is. It's 1, 2, 3, -3, so b equals -3. Slope is rise over run, so choose 2 points. They give us 2 points, and then go from left to right. So this time we're starting here. We have to go down 2, so down to -2 over 2. We simplify that to -1, so our equation is y equals -1x minus 3. Or you could just say -x minus 3. That's fine too. Okay, number 8. Okay, so this is a vertical line. Okay, so remember when we learned about slopes in class, vertical lines have an undefined slope, all right? So it doesn't fit in the form of y equals mx plus b. So if we have a vertical line, our equation is simply x equals, and then where does it cross the x-axis? So this one crosses at 0. So x equals 0 is our equation for this. So as you're doing this, I would recommend doing this all. And then if you're not sure, or if you just want to check your work, open Desmos and type in your equation and see if it matches what you see on these graphs. So it's really easy to kind of forget about negative signs or things like that. So just looking at this, we should have negative slopes for number 2, number 4, and number 7, right? So just, keep those things in mind as you're working through this. Okay, so the next is a little, kind of another puzzle. I'm just going to explain a couple things. So the first section, it says to use digits 2 to 9. Okay, and it says to find one pair of digits. So you're going to use the same numbers for each of these expressions. So whatever those 2 numbers are, you're going to use those. And the goal is to produce 2 rational roots and 2 irrational roots. Okay, so remember what the difference is. So rational, those are the ones that we can write as a fraction, or in other words, if we're talking about square roots, they come out to whole numbers. So for example, square root of 4, right, that equals 2. So any of those on the diagonal of our multiplication table is going to be rational roots. Irrational are all the other ones, so like square root of 3 or square root of 6. Okay, those are the ones that will give us decimals when we evaluate those. Okay, so we want 2 irrational and 2 rational. The next one, this is exponents, right? So you need to find the greatest value. So this number needs to be the biggest number possible, but it has to also be equal using those exponents. So it's going to take you a while to figure this out. And there's really, there are strategies. Okay, just try it first of all, and then once you kind of get an idea, you will start to come up with better guesses. But it is kind of a guess and check type of problem. And then just make sure you're using numbers 1 through 9 only once each. Okay, the next one, this is a negative number, so it's up high. It's not really, it kind of seems like an exponent, but it's not. It's just a negative number. Okay, and then the top two equations are equal, and the bottom has the greatest value. And then you can use 1 through 6 one time each, and it doesn't have to be like if you choose 2 and 3, it doesn't have to be 2 and 3 each time. Okay, so the first one is like that, but this one you can use, you'd have to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the numbers to fit in those boxes. And of course, if you don't get it, just send me a message or leave a comment, and I will help you. Okay, here we have more linear practice, and all we're doing is looking at these equations and writing down what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. So remember, if it looks like this, all we have to do is find the number that's in front of x, that's our slope, and the other number, including the sign, is our y-intercept. So, think about these. The first three are written just like this, so you can just look at those numbers and you would just write it down. So like, I'm not even gonna do it. I will do an example for the next section where we need to rearrange those equations. Okay, so just like we did on a previous graphing problem, we're going to rearrange. I'm gonna do number 4. Rearrange this, so I'm gonna subtract 6x on both sides. Okay, and then that would give me 5y equals negative 6x plus 20. Okay, and we want just y by itself, so divide every term by 5. And then simplify if we can. So we get y equals negative 6/5 x plus 4. Okay, so then as I'm writing my answer, slope is negative 6/5, and then y-intercept is 4, positive 4. So that's it. So there's really no way of telling this just by looking at the original equation. So you have to do the work, rearrange it, and then identify those numbers in the equation. Number 6, remember this is a vertical line, so there is no slope. Okay, or you could just say m is undefined. Okay, and there is no y-intercept. Okay, so it's not b equals 0. No y-intercept. Okay, so it's going to be a line at x equals 5, just a vertical line like that. So you can see it never crosses the y-axis. All right. Day 10. So this would be the last day. So just so you know, and if you haven't seen the 8th grade packet, it is considerably more work, but it's just a lot more practice, especially practice of things that you've already learned and have mastered, which is mostly linear, so doing this kind of thing over and over. The tasks that are the beginning of each day are really good, so if you If you do find yourself with extra time, I would definitely make sure that you can do those. Some really good problems there. Okay, so this one is a rule of 4, and we're just going to combine everything that we just practiced into one thing here. So an equation, right, you're going to find the slope by choosing 2 points. They give us a couple points here. So we're going to go down and over. So the slope is, remember, rise over run. So I'm going to go down 2 over 3. So there's our slope. Our y-intercept is here. Okay, and then make a table. They give us 1, 2, 3 points. You can use those points. Write your table. You can come up with another point using the same pattern. Like there'll be 1 here. Okay, so you can continue the table. Describe in words. So think of a situation where your starting value is 5. So just worry about the first quadrant. Don't worry about what's going on the left side of this graph. So just starting at 5. Okay, so we have 5 something, and then we're decreasing by this amount, 2 over 3. So 2/3. So what does that mean? Okay, so you could talk about money, something that you can take a fraction of though. So it can't be like baseball cards, for example, unless you're tearing them up and passing out, 2/3 of a baseball card. So think about things that you can have fractions of. You could talk about maybe climbing down a hill or, skating down a ramp, something like that. Okay, so another rule of 4. Same exact thing. This time they don't actually put dots on the points for the graph, but you can see that there is a point where they cross over the grids exactly. Okay, so there's actually 4 that you can put in your table. And again, the equation, we need to know the y-intercept, which is 2. So B is 2. The slope, we're going down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. So slope is -3 over 1. And then you can write your equation from there. So slope is -3 over 1, or just -3, x plus 2. Again, when you describe it, think about what you can say. You start off with 2 of something, or in this case, maybe you're diving. You start off 2 feet above the ground at a diving board, and then you jump in the water, and you're going down 3 feet every second, something like that. Okay, so that is it for the second week, or days 6 through 10.